Welcome to Skyscraper Sessions, a new space on the Perimeter Defense Basketball podcast where we rise above the noise and take a clear view of the Chicago sky in the WNBA. I'm Queen Chill Mode, and every week we'll be scaling the game, spotlighting the stars, and tapping into the soul of women's basketball. A Skyscraper Session will be recapping the Chicago Sky's most recent game against the Washington Mystics. We'll also take a look at a few of their most recent transactions, and we'll tap into a few news and notes around the WNBA as well. And before we get started, remember to hit that subscribe button, go ahead and like, and turn on your post notifications. Now, the Chicago Sky was still without a few players from their rotation as they were missing Haley Van Lith with an ankle injury, Ariel Atkins with a lower leg injury, and as you all know that Courtney Vandersloot is out for the season with a knee injury, but injuries did return in this game after missing the last two games with the back injury, and she made her presence felt in the first quarter, scoring 9 points and 5 rebounds and having 1 block. Also getting off to a pretty good start in the first quarter was Rebecca Allen. She got off to a pretty good start with her shooting, and Chicago overall shot 52% from the field in the first quarter and only had 2 turnovers. Hey, Chicago Sky fans, if you know, you know. Anywho, even with that being said, they still were down 30-27 after one, and that had a lot to do with the hot shooting of Sonia Citron as she scored 12 points on 5 of 6 shooting in the first quarter. To kick off the second quarter, Washington started on a 9-4 run, but Chicago came back with a run of its own to get within 2 points. Washington continued its hot shooting as the quarter went on, pushing the lead to 55-47 at the half. To close out the half, Citron had 19 points on 7 of 8 shooting from the field, 4 of 4 shooting from three-point range, and Washington as a whole was highly efficient in that first half as they shot 56% from the field and 46% from three-point range. My word. Anywho, as far as Chicago was concerned, they only had 5 turnovers for the half in that first half, which is saying something. And we as Sky fans, we've come accustomed to having high turnover quarters, halves for our Chicago Sky ladies, but they did a pretty decent job in the first half of only committing 5 turnovers. Now, one of the trends that I've noticed also as watching the Chicago Sky play out this season is that the third quarters have been quarters that they really struggle to score. They've had several games where they've gone long stretches of their inability to score, and so I was hoping going into this third quarter that this would be one of those games that they would, break the trend of struggling with scoring in the third quarter as well as with turnovers. But it was not to be as Washington went on a 10-0 run midway through the third quarter to push the lead up to 15 points at 72-57. Just a little bit over 3 minutes remaining in the third quarter, Angel Reese picked up her 5th foul and had to sit out the remaining of the quarter. But Chicago did stay resilient. They closed on a positive note, went on an 8-0 run to cut the gap to 11 points by the end of the third quarter. Moving along into the fourth quarter, at one point Chicago got as close as 8 points, but Citron went on another heater to close out the game as Washington defeated the Chicago Sky 103-86. That loss down takes Chicago's losing streak to 6 games, and their overall record falls to 7-19. Now, if we were to point to a player of the game for Washington, it would definitely be Sonia Citron as she finished with a career high of 28 points on 10 of 15 shooting from the field and 5 of 6 shooting from three-point range. Now, I don't know if this young lady went into this game on a revenge tip. As you all know, the Chicago Sky initially had the 3rd pick in the draft and opted to trade the pick to the Washington Mystics in exchange for Area Atkins. And you know how sometimes a lot of draft picks use a lot of different things as motivation, being traded on draft night or falling in the draft and having players picked over them that they felt like they were better than. I don't know if she was on that type of time just tonight, but she definitely put on a show against the Chicago Sky. Also, her fellow rookie, Kiki Eferen, chipped in 22 points with 10 boards, 4 assists on 8 of 14 shooting from the field. And looking at the stats for our Chicago Sky ladies, Angel Reese led all scores for the Sky with 22 points, 13 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, and 2 blocks in the game. Camila Cordoso, also contributed 21 points, 9 rebounds on 8 of 16 shooting from the field. And Rachel Brown has been on a pretty good tear of late as she continued that this evening with 19 points, 3 steals, 3 assists, 3 rebounds on 8 of 14 shooting from the field. Now, if I would say, the takeaways from this game was probably the points in the paint. Chicago is one of the better scoring teams in the paint in the WNBA, but Washington outpainted the paint scores 52-40. I feel like that was probably one of the key reasons that kind of led to the loss, if we're being honest. Chicago's inability to protect the paint, protect the rim, to make it life difficult for Washington in the paint was a contributing factor to tonight's loss. And at one point, Chicago went to a zone defense with the hopes of cutting down on scoring in the paint, but it only opened the door for the Mystics' outside shooting. As I said before, they were very efficient from the field, finishing the game shooting 50% overall and 41% from three-point range. Defense has been one of the more inconsistent areas of the game for the Chicago Sky pretty much all season long. As fans, we've seen them play excellent defensive games, especially on the perimeter. It's been a sight to behold. It's contributed to a good portion of the wins that they've had, but in today's game, they were not able to protect the paint, and when they did try to go to the zone and create havoc, it only opened up opportunities for the shooters from mid-range, from outside, with the three-point shot. It's just a poor performance defensively all around from both inside and outside. And now, Chicago didn't have an extreme high number of turnovers. Now, I know that even late in the season as we are, Chicago unfortunately is still leading the WNBA in turnovers per game. But in this particular game, there wasn't too many instances where they would go on what I like to call turnover runs, and that basically is where there's been back-to-back possessions where there's been turnover after turnover after turnover. That didn't happen in this game like we've seen it happen before in times past with the Sky. Even with that being said, though, the 14 turnovers that they did have, that it led to 26 points for Washington. In the way Washington shot the ball today, they didn't really need any additional help winning this game, but the turnover certainly was also a contributing factor to what was already a hot shooting night for a team in Washington. But I will say this. I must commend the ladies for remaining resilient and not hanging their heads and continuing to compete, even when Washington pushed the lead up to 19 points. They continued. They could have easily been on some here we go again type stuff, but they weren't. They stayed together, continued to compete, and they cut the lead under 10 points on many occasions in the second half. And if a few things may have broken, right in their favor, who knows how much closer they may have gotten. But be that as it may, The Chicago Sky will begin a 4-game homestand starting Friday, August 1st against the Golden State Valkyries. Maybe Ariel will return in this one. We'll find out more of that in the next few days. But let's talk about some of these moves that have recently been made by the Chicago Sky over the last few weeks. They've added Marquisha Davis via a 7-day contract. She got a few games in here and there, but she didn't really, have a major impact to the point where they felt the need to continue on with her, and they ultimately waived her. Also, Mariah Jefferson was waived by the Chicago Sky. Best wishes to her on her road to recovery. She hasn't been healthy all season long, and so while I'm sure she's not happy about not being on the team, this does give her an opportunity. If you're looking at it on the bright side, this does give her an opportunity to really fully recover, and hopefully she can regain her health and continue on her WNBA journey. But also recently, because of those two moves, Chicago was in need of an additional guard, so they added, I hope I'm pronouncing this lady's name right, but if not, let me know. I believe it's Servi Uzun. She's a two-way guard. Recently has played with Dallas and Phoenix of the WNBA. Said before, she's a two-way guard. She can create offense and is a solid passer. She may be available for the next game against the Valkyries, as she didn't travel with the team today, obviously, if she just recently signed on yesterday. So hopefully we'll get a chance to see what she'll bring to the table and if she can make an impact with the Sky. Okay, so let's check in on what's happening around the WNBA as Cameron Brinks of the LA Sparks made her return to the court after missing a good portion of her rookie season due to an ACL tear, as the Sparks took on the Las Vegas Aces. Now in this game, she played 14 minutes in her return. She finished with 5 points, 3 rebounds, 1 steal, and 1 block. She was active throughout the game, and she competed while she was out there. My guess is that as she continues to make her way back from the injury and getting better conditioning, I'm going to go out on a limb and say she's more than likely going to be on a minutes restriction. So you can kind of expect that maybe within that 10 to 14 minute range is probably where they're going to start her off as she's making her way back on the court. Now the Aces, on the other hand, ended LA's 5-game win streak with the victory by having strong performances from Asia Wilson, as always, 34 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, and 3 blocks on 16 of 23 shooting from the field. Jackie Young had a triple-double, with 18 points, 11 rebounds, and 11 assists, and also with 3 steals herself, as the Aces defeated the Sparks 89-74. Now, with the win, it brings the Aces record to 14-13. They pretty much have been hovering around 500 much of the season, so it's going to be very interesting to see if Vegas will be able to string together a long win streak to move up the standings as we, get closer to the playoffs, and see if they can finally find that chemistry and continuity and get on a good enough win streak to move up to the standings and look like the Aces that we've all accustomed to seeing them play like. They're currently on a 2-game win streak. So, yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see not only if the Aces can position themselves for a better seed, and also several other teams are probably in that same boat with them. But that will do it for this edition of Skyscraper Sessions. Remember to keep your head in the clouds and your game in the paint.